The city fell to Moscow's forces. Russia's siege left 93% of Mariupol's high-rise buildings, about 443 towers destroyed or damaged. The BBC's Olga Robinson.
Official documents published by the occupying authorities in Mariupol since July last year show that at least 5,700 homes have been identified as ownerless or potentially ownerless and are facing seizure. But many of these homes do have legal owners. Ukrainian residents who fled Russia's brutal siege of Mariupol in 2022. To try and rescue their homes, Ukrainians have to face a dangerous return to Mariupol and pressure to obtain a Russian passport. This leaves many with an impossible choice, whether to risk their safety in returning to Mariupol or give up their Ukrainian national identity in order to keep their homes.
Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta says Pep Guardiola inspired their Champions League run, while Serena Williams says she would have received a 20-year ban if she had failed a drug test like Yannick Sinner. I'll have details of these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Onele Nzinzi and Msabudi Makura with our news and sports headlines. We are coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. We are on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenV channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now, the
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
The head of the UN mission to South Sudan has told the Security Council that all their efforts are now focused on preventing a relapse into widespread conflict and refocusing attention on the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. The 2018 agreement sought to end the country's bloody civil war and usher in a transitional period towards elections in 2024, which have since been postponed until December 2026. The Secretary-General's Special Representative to South Sudan, Nicholas Haysom, informed the Council that a standoff between the two preeminent parties to that agreement had now degenerated into a direct military confrontation and escalated tensions across the country. Showan Bryce Peace has more.
South Sudan again finds itself at a critical juncture, with the UN's top in-country official warning in late March that the country was teetering on the edge of a renewed civil war. Nicholas Haysom is head of the UN mission in South Sudan.
The trigger can be traced back to events beginning in Upper Nile State since the beginning of March, when the White Army overran the Nasir-based garrison from the South Sudan People's Defense Forces. Subsequent airstrikes on Nasir, allegedly involving devices containing incendiary fuel, have caused significant casualties and horrible injuries, including to women and children. Humanitarians estimate that over 80,000 people have been displaced. The series of events in Nasir culminated on the 7th of March in an attack on a United Nations helicopter in Nasir, resulting in the death of an anonymous crew member and numerous South Sudanese military personnel.
Haysom warned the Council that since the events in Upper Nile State last month, the context has seen a deplorable downward spiral, with reports of further mobilization by the military factions, including the forced recruitment of children into their respective ranks. Pointed to the deployment of Ugandan foreign forces at the request of the South Sudan government as having further stoked public fear. Haysom also earlier indicated that as long-stalled elections in South Sudan grew closer and as political competition increased, the relationship between the two principal players, President Salva Kiir, an ethnic Dinka, and former rival turned Vice President Riek Machar, an ethnic Nuer, appeared to be framed by a lack of trust, and amid this worrying escalation, urgent calls for collective action.
Senior SPLM-IO civilian and military actors have been removed from official posts, detained, or gone into hiding. The arrest of First Vice President Riek Machar reflects a new low in trust between the principal parties. Misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech is fueling political and ethnic tension, particularly on the social media. These conditions are darkly reminiscent of the 2013 and 2016 conflicts, which took over 400,000 lives.
And if a political crisis is not averted in South Sudan, the already fragile humanitarian crisis in the country will simply deteriorate, with negative impacts already felt from the civil war in northern neighbour Sudan. Edem Warsunu is Director of Operations in the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs.
Last week, the World Food Programme warned that vulnerable families in the northeast of the country are at a critical tipping point, with hunger nearing record levels. With the pre-harvest lean season now beginning, almost 7.7 million people acutely hungry, up from 7.1 million people in the same period in 2024. Beyond the current violence, market disruption, high inflation, and reduced purchasing power also continue to limit household access to food. Our assessments project that 650,000 children under the age of 5 are at risk of severe acute malnutrition this year.
As the UNMISS peacekeeping mission faces growing impediments to its protection of civilians' mandate, as Haysom explained.
UNMISS faces operational limitations in all these tasks, especially in the face of this broader conflict. Our peacekeepers continue to face access denials on the ground. If the current trend continues, we are looking at a shift in conflict dynamics from subnational and community-based violence to a more complex picture involving signatory parties and foreign actors. We are already prioritizing resources accordingly, but UNMISS is a peacekeeping mission, not an army, and cannot be everywhere all at once. In this context, the 4 pillars of UNMISS mandate remain as important as ever. This includes protection of civilians, facilitating the delivery of humanitarian assistance, supporting the implementation of the peace agreement, and monitoring and reporting on human rights. We seek the support of this Council to ensure mandate continuity during the crisis.
A precarious situation in a region already framed by conflict, fragility, and civilian suffering. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 14 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Tunisia has dramatically expanded the use of politically motivated arrests and prosecutions to intimidate and silence critics. This according to a report released by Human Rights Watch, in what the group describes as a sweeping rollback of freedoms won during Tunisia's 2011 revolution. Authorities in recent years have targeted lawyers, judges, journalists and activists in a crackdown on critics of President Kais Saied. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Advocacy and Communications Director for Human Rights Watch Middle East and North Africa Division, Ahmed Benchemsi. Ahmed, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thanks for having me, Lulu.
Now, Human Rights Watch has documented the cases of 22 people who have been detained on abusive charges. Tell us more about the key findings in this report, which is titled All Conspirators: How Tunisia Uses Arbitrary Detention to Crush Dissent.
Well, I'll start with the title. As you said, it's titled All Conspirators, between quotation marks, obviously, because we're not saying that these people are conspirators. But this has become a meme, if you will, on social media because there's this very famous trial that is ongoing now in Tunisia called the conspiracy trial, where about 40 people are accused of plotting to, I don't know, overthrow the president and maybe even kill him. It so happens that all of these are political opponents to the president. Some of them are former ministers, some of them are former parliamentaries, just his political adversaries who are prosecuted without charge and in violation of pretty much all the norms of fair trial and fair justice. So many Tunisians commentators reacted to that by sarcastically saying on social media, between quotation marks, we are all conspirators. And basically the message is, if being an opponent to President Said is considered conspiracy, then we're all guilty. Because this is what we're documenting in this report, that basically opposition, the President Said is criminalizing opposition. And of course, that is not acceptable. It is a fundamental violation of a fundamental human right, which is the right to free expression and free speech.
Now, with all of this, at least 14 of these detainees could face capital punishment if convicted, as over 50 people are being held, on political grounds or for exercising their rights as of January 2025. Just the fact that capital punishment could be the death penalty is worrying, and nobody seems to be doing anything, especially when we look at the international governments or international entities that are just sitting and watching this happen. Why is this the case?
It is extremely worrying. I mean, that to target 14 political opponents with capital punishment just because they expressed their political disagreements is extremely worrying. And you ask a very good question: why do foreign allied governments, including member countries of the European Union, why do they stay silent? Well, I mean, they shouldn't stay silent if you ask me and if you ask us at Human Rights Watch. But we can't help but noticing that the European Union has signed recently a memorandum of agreement with Tunisia for about 100 million euros for Tunisia to police its borders, to block would-be illegal immigrants to Europe. It seems like the European Union is only interested by that, enabling Tunisia to become a border cop in order to block immigration. And in exchange for that, they are happy to turn a blind eye to whatever is happening in Tunisia, including the systematic use of arbitrary arrest and abusive prosecutions to curtail the opposition. This is not acceptable. I mean, and even if you look at the tactics for holding migration itself, they are unacceptable as well, because Tunisia have been steadily, expelling migrants that they say are undocumented, but without really any a process to check and verify if that's the case. They've been just throwing them in the desert of neighbor Libya and Algeria and telling them just, walk ahead. And some of them died in the recent years. So, I mean, what's happening in Tunisia right now is extremely worrying on many levels, and the European Union should stop turning a blind eye in exchange of a promise to hold immigration.
Now, Ahmed, the judiciary is now also in the spotlight because, with the authorities having also targeted the judiciary, evidenced by President Said's dismantling of the High Judicial Council. This move must have impacted the judiciary's independence and Tunisians' right for fair trials.
Indeed. I mean, the dismantling of the High Judicial Council was only the first step that was taken by President Said to curtail the independence of the judiciary system. He also fired 57 judges, or I think that was the number, yes, 57, in one go, in one day. An administrative tribunal has later ruled that 49 of them should be, brought back, and this judiciary order has not been applied by the Said administration until now. The president, he undermined gravely the presumption of innocence of all those political detainees by referring to them, even before the trials have started, as traitors or even terrorists. He went after, his administration went after the lawyers of his opponents by prosecuting the lawyers, by travel banning them. I mean, the government is taking several steps to undermine the independence of the judiciary in general and the fair trial guarantees of political opponents in particular. It is extremely worrying, the situation.
And now, with the 49 judges who were supposed to be reinstated, and that hasn't happened, what's happened with the judicial processes that, the normal cases that should be taking place in the courts? And with experienced judges having been removed, I can imagine what the juniors are going through now, currently.
Well, I mean, probably. I mean, you can't just ignore rulings and judiciary by administrative courts and have a judicial system that will keep being functional. But what we're looking at in particular here is trials that have no basis on political ground. I mean, that's bad enough. And as of today, there are at least 50 political prisoners in Tunisia. I mean by that, people being held on political grounds or just for exercising their rights to free speech. And these include not just journalists, activists, human rights defenders, lawyers, but also former ministers, like the former president of the parliament, Rashid Ghannouchi, who was arguably one of the most powerful politicians in Tunisia in the past 10 years. He's in prison. He's been in prison for 2 years now. He's 83, and there are concerns that he might die in prison because he's a sick man. The former Minister of Justice himself is in prison. The former Prime Minister is in prison. Former members of the parliament.
Yeah.
This is the situation in Tunisia right now. It's unacceptable.
Ahmed, unfortunately, we have run out of time, and we are going to have to leave it here for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having me.
That's Ahmed Ben Shamsi, Advocacy and Communications Director for Human Rights Watch Middle East and North, joining us on the line.
Ritmos e cultura com o embaixador da música africana e lusófona, Jacobi Wakantivani.
Mombali nanga kasongo mbona wewe songa libala mbona wewe mombali nanga
tem sentido tanto a sua falta e do ritmo de cultura onde você esteve, meu querido embaixador.
É 2025 e o embaixador da música africana e lusófona, Jacobi Wakantivani, traz todas as entrevistas com os músicos africanos e lusófonos para a melhor dança, entrevistas e entretenimento. Não perca! Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas de Johannesburg, aqui no Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 24 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
In South Africa, students from Wits University are marching in the city of Johannesburg to the Human Rights Commission offices, demanding the right to register for studies despite historical debt. The protest is led by the Wits Hunger Strike Solidarity Committee with support from the South African Municipal Workers Union and the South African National Civic Organization in the Johannesburg region. This follows a 12-day hunger strike by students, which the university management has reportedly ignored. And to speak to us about this, we are joined on the line from the protest by Siviwe Mafuna, convener of the Wits Hunger Strike Solidarity Committee. Siviwe, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon. Sorry about the past. Good afternoon, and thank you for having us.
Siviwe, what led to the decision to begin a hunger strike, and why was this the form of protest chosen?
We had noted that it was the systemic exclusion of Black African students who are poor and can't afford the fees at WITS. They are told to pay 50% of the exorbitant fees at WITS. We have taken a decision to protest, but because WITS is violent to the black body, they will jail you, they will suspend you, they will take away your degree. So we have elected to then embark on a hunger strike, because we are saying to WITS, we will not die in the periphery. We will die in front of you, because to finance us is tantamount to sentencing us to death, but not die in front of you. So we elected to go to a hunger strike.
And what is the response from WITS management? What is the response from WITS University management during the 12 days of the hunger strike, and now you're protesting, you're in the streets?
Yes, they ignored us. They told us they don't have time to meet us. They can only speak to the SRC, which they've managed to keep. The SRC are undergrads in the main, and they still have to go and get their degrees. So they took an advantage of that they are scared. So we then decided to continue with another form of strike to show that WITS has exposed black people. They've stripped them of their dignity, and our backs are out. That is the reason. We are now approaching Human Rights Commission, because we are saying to human rights, you have always said you stand for rights. Which rights do you stand for? Because us, as black South African students, are not allowed to study, and you are quiet. These are our rights. Education is not a privilege for the rich. It should be accessed by everyone, whether rich or poor.
Now, Siviwe, just explain the significance of now this second phase. You've just touched on it slightly, but I want you to go into the detail in terms of umqolo uvelile and what it represents for the students.
So umqolo uvelile is a form of a nude protest that shows our back. It's a closer say that our dignity is stripped by the university. So we are using a form of symbolism to show what they've done to us. So what we do is we go to WITS by the entrance, by the brand. We stand there, we show our backs. We say to South Africans, this is what WITS has done to us, and this is how we are responding. But it's not only WITS, even our government has ignored us, because you can't have South Africans protesting, going on a hunger strike, complaining about their constitutional rights being infringed, and the government is quiet. We even went to Luthuli House to protest and submit our memorandum. We are yet to receive a response. It's been more than 48 hours. In fact, it's a week now since we've last given them our memorandum. They've not answered us. So it shows that Black lives don't matter. This is the era we exist in. The story of 94 has ceased to exist.
Now, very quickly, let's go into the issues with the debt and what sort of role NSFAS has played in the crisis that is faced by certain students who are now hitting the streets in protest.
NSFAS has played a crucial role in our apathy. It has created this situation because in 2021, it stopped funding postgrads. Secondly, this idea of NSFAS should be abolished because it then says to us, we must humiliate ourselves. We must go and give them our household income to say the entire household earns less than 350,000 for us to qualify for NSFAS. I can tell you now that at Wits University, we have many students who don't qualify for NSFAS, but who are too poor to be able to pay for Wits. Now, if you are going to stop funding postgrads and stop funding undergrads who are 100 rand over the threshold of NSFAS, what must happen?
The missing middle.
Yes. NSFAS has been a tool used to further marginalize black people. If the government was serious, it should have just said free education for all.
Siviwe, we have run out of time. Siviwe, we have run out of time. We are going to have to leave it there for today. But thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having us.
That's Siviwe Mafuna, a convener of the Wits Hunger Strike Solidarity Committee, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Tunisia has dramatically expanded the use of politically motivated arrests and prosecutions to intimidate and silence critics. This is according to a report released by Human Rights Watch. The young women who testified against Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omodoso in South Africa during his trial say they feel the justice system has let them down. The High Court in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province found Omodoso and his two other accused not guilty on all 32 charges, including rape, human trafficking and racketeering last week. And Ukraine's defense minister and foreign minister have unexpectedly arrived in Paris, where talks are beginning on how to end Ukraine's war with Russia. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you, Onele. We'll say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good morning from the, good afternoon rather, from the sports desk. We'll start with this story. So Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta thanked Premier League rivals Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola after his side defeated holders Real Madrid by 2-1 at the Santiago Bernabeu in Spain last night to reach the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. So the Spaniard hailed the victory as one of the best nights of his career and also revealed he had a chat with his former mentor Guardiola on the morning of the second leg before Arsenal claimed a 5-1 famous aggregate victory in Spain. Arteta worked as Guardiola's assistant at City from 2016 to 2019. Meanwhile, Arteta also heaped praises on his team's performance as well as ultimate qualification for the semi-finals of the Champions League.
For the manner and the way we did it, not only by the way we played, but as well with the circumstances, the amount of injuries that we have. So I think overall, it shows the character of this team, of this club, and is a night to be very proud of.
Also, Arsenal will host Paris Saint-Germain on the 29th of April in the first leg semi-final, aiming for the spot in the final in Munich, having defeated Paris Saint-Germain 2-0 at home in the group stages in October of last year. Onto this now, Santos forward Neymar left the field in tears after injuring his leg just 34 minutes into the first start in the Brazilian Serie A Championship this season. The 33-year-old, who returned from 6 weeks out with a thigh injury against Fluminense on Sunday, was handed a start against Atletico MG on Wednesday. The former Barcelona forward was wearing a special number 100 shirt to commemorate his 100th appearance at Santos Villa Belmiro Miro Stadium, but after gesturing towards the bench following Alvaro Beral's goal to put the home side 2-0 up, Neymar sat on the field to await medical attention. It was quickly decided that he could not continue, and a clearly emotional Neymar was taken off the field on a buggy holding his left thigh area that had kept him out of the previous 6 weeks. So Neymar was then consoled by his own teammates as well as former Brazil teammate and Atletico MG forward Hulk. The former Paris Saint-Germain forward has made 8 appearances for Santos and scored 3 goals since returning to the club from Saudi Arabia side Al Hilal. On to rugby news now. Kenya's national men's rugby sevens team, also known as Suja, captain George Japolo Oro, is confident of maintaining their core status in the World Series. Oro says the team is buzzing in confidence heading into the relegation playoffs in Los Angeles in the USA on the 3rd and the 4th of May. Now, Suja will be fighting for survival at the playoffs after finishing 9th at the end of the regular season of the series with just 36 points. Despite a taxing season, Kevin Bling Wabama's side redeemed themselves with a second-place finish at the last leg in Singapore, at losing 21-12 to Fiji in a thrilling final. Now, each player, as well as member of the technical bench, will pocket $575 each from the bonuses, even as they continue training for the battle that is set for Los Angeles. On to tennis news now. American great Serena Williams says she would have been banned for 20 years and stripped of her Grand Slam titles had she also failed a drug test like the men's world number 1 Jannik Sinner did so last year. So Sinner accepted a 3-month ban in February of this year following an agreement with World Anti-Doping Agency, which challenged an independent tribunal's decision to clear him of any wrongdoing after 2 positive tests for an anabolic agent cluster ball. Now, reigning Australian Open as well as US Open champion Sinner, whose ban will end officially on the 4th of May, has always maintained his innocence, though his case raised questions as well as concerns about whether he received preferential treatment from the authorities. Meanwhile, Iga Swiatek's case also caused some surprise, with the women's world number 2 accepting a 1-month suspension in November of last year. This after testing positive for a banned substance, tremetazidine. Now, former world number 1 Simona Halep also was banned despite denying knowingly taking a banned drugs, roxadustat, and her 4-year suspension was then cut to 9 months in 2024 after an appeal by, at the sport's highest court, that is the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So in an interview with Time magazine, Williams also said she took extra care with what she put into her body during her career in case she ingested something that could get her into trouble. And finally, back home, Cricket South Africa took a major step in the right direction as the Federation secured a big global role player in the motoring industry as a headline sponsor of the first team. So Suzuki South Africa committed to a multi-year deal as the official vehicle partner to Cricket South Africa, as well as the official Proteas men, as well as the women's ODI partner. It is the first time the automaker will sponsor a national team, and Cricket South Africa's director of cricket, Inokongwe, says it's a vote of confidence and can also pave the way for more partners to get on board.
We believe it is a turning point. We knew when we all got on board that it's not going to just happen overnight. We needed also to do some groundwork from our side and also on the field. Put out some good performances, but also off the field. Get structures in place and just get a clear direction moving forward. And that's something that we've actually done over the last almost 3 years now.
Right, so that's a wrap of your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu D. Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Ahoy, matey.
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Msibudi Makura. We say good afternoon to Chanduko Ligege with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Action SA has raised alarm over power utility Eskom's last update, revealing that $190 million was spent on diesel in just 30 days, with close to on $1.8 billion spent in the first 10 days of April alone. The party says South Africa hasn't ended load shedding, it's simply masking it with an expensive diesel-powered illusion, all funded by taxpayers. Alan Beasley is Action SA Member of Parliament.
I mean, 3.6 billion, it's a massive amount in our country when we've got this budget impasse happening. 3.6 billion is a massive figure. It's literally burnt, disappeared, gone. If you look at the energy availability factor, it's gone down to 56%, which is well below the 70% which they need to stop load shedding. So it is a massive concern.
The Public Servants Association in South Africa's Mpumalanga province has expressed concern over what it calls the ongoing suspension of chief executive officers and senior managers at various healthcare institutions in the province, saying that it could impact service delivery negatively. It says that 14 CEOs and managers currently remain suspended by the Mpumalanga Department of Health, with some of the suspension ongoing since 2022. Flip van der Walt is the acting provincial manager for Mpumalanga PSA.
The outcome of the investigations have cleared these managers and CEOs to return to work, but they are still sitting either at home or some of them are given an office in some of the institutions, but they are not getting any work to do or any responsibilities, but they are getting paid.
South Africa's rand has weakened against a firmer dollar as markets awaited information on U.S. tariffs and local investors looked for news on the future of the coalition government. The rand traded at 18.8550 against the U.S. dollar, about 0.2% weaker than its previous close. The dollar last traded about 0.3% stronger against a basket of currencies. In East Africa, a dispute between a British-owned tea plantation and a local community in western Kenya has come to the boil in what could be a sign of turbulent times ahead for tea producers facing a growing backlash over colonial-era injustices. On the rolling green hills of the Sitoi estate in Nandi County, more than 100 residents are occupying 140 hectares of land, picking tea and living in huts made of mud and rusty iron sheets while grazing their cattle. They say the land was gifted to them in the 1980s by Eastern Produce Kenya, EPK, which is a majority owned by London-listed Camellia. Lus says the gift was for 82 hectares, not the 222 hectares that the local Kimasas Farmers Cooperative claims. Several people working on land issues say the attacks reflect broader frustration with a failure to remedy colonial land grabs. The dollar lifted from a 7-month low against the yen as U.S.-Japan trade talks avoided the issue of foreign exchange, while it made small gains on other currencies ahead of the long Easter break. The dollar has taken a beating this month as the U.S. has threatened, imposed and then postponed massive tariffs. The euro and yen are not far behind, with gains of near 5% on the dollar in little more than 2 weeks. Let's have a look at financial indicators this afternoon. $1 US in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 603. In Botswana, 13 pula 71. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 766. Zambia, 28 kwacha 32. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 88. Russia, 82 rubles 961. India, 85 rupee 62. China, 71.30. South Africa, $1 is at 18 rand 89. $1 is at 75 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $3,321, platinum at $958 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $66.39 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Chandu Goligege with our business news. It is 12:46 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our skills development for learners in South Africa in coding and robotics is the focus in the classroom following the rollout for grades R to 9. While presenting opportunities for skills development, it also has challenges for educators and learners. And to speak to us more on this, we are joined on the line by Yolan Jacobs, publisher for schools and home learning at Oxford University Press, South Africa. Yolan, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, my pleasure.
Now, the big question is if South Africa is ready for coding and robotics in the classroom.
I think schools, teachers, and even parents have been debating this concept of readiness, but the reality is that the children are ready. And we can't leave them behind, and they need to be prepared for the future in which they're going to find themselves. So there's also not the expectation that by the end of next year, all children are going to be building high-tech robots. It's going to be a process. So the best answer to that question is I think we are definitely ready to start the process.
Now, in terms of being ready to start the process, you find that presently private schools, actually most private schools, I should say, are already doing robotics and coding in their curricula. And what the delays in the public sector is becoming a challenge, or should we say a challenge in the sense that even the teachers themselves wouldn't know where to start. Is it not a good idea to bring in teachers who are specifically for coding and robotics?
Absolutely, but more importantly is to look at what is needed inside of those classrooms themselves, because there has to be some kind of foundational learning first. As you said, some areas have been doing this for many, many years. And it's going to be quite overwhelming to suddenly throw children and schools and teachers in at the deep end. And the brilliant thing about the curriculum as it's been designed is that it's a starting point to bridge exactly that gap. It's to start where we are with what we have and then to get caught up in terms of electronics and data and mechanisms that we might not yet be familiar with.
Now, why do you think it is essential to have this and in the curricula, and also what are the some of the long-term benefits that students will obviously gain from these subjects?
The long-term benefit is actually quite far-reaching. We speak often about these 21st century skills that are needed in the workplace, the ability to be creative and to communicate and to collaborate. And coding and robotics leans into all of those skills and actually even more. Specifically, I would say innovation and resilience. And this ability to deconstruct a problem, to get it wrong, to try again, to try a different approach, to improve on it. These are essential even when it comes to things like entrepreneurship. So it's a subject that is not just for children with specific interests, but it has benefit to every child in South Africa.
And how can coding and robotics education help in bridging the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application in other STEM subjects?
So STEM fields have a really interesting relationship between theory and practice. Maths, for example, works from concrete to abstract. So we first learn to count our fingers or with manipulatives, and then we lean into doing it mentally and promoting mental math. Coding and robotics now moves the child back from doing something in the mental state to being hands-on again. And whether they're doing this simulating robotics with paper models or whether they're actually working with the wires and gadgets, this is where innovation happens. It's that ability to move quickly and successfully back and forth between theory and practice.
What should happen now? How do schools prepare themselves? How does the basic education department, prepare themselves and ensure that the right equipment you've already mentioned and touched on is in place, and the right teachers are in place, everyone is available, and that the environment is then conducive for teaching and learning of coding and robotics to start and move forward?
So as mentioned, it's not going to be an overnight success story. It is a process, and there has been enormous thought put in place in the construction of the curriculum itself. It deals with teaching using the things that are in the classroom already. And I think that is a really, really big step towards making this a success. Then the training of the teacher is obviously going to be incredibly important, and there's already been rollouts and conversations and resources being made available. It's always going to be of benefit for stakeholders to do some research into what other free courses and materials are available, what organizations can they reach out to in order to come and speak to the teachers and give them the confidence that's needed in order to make this a success. But what stakeholders like governing bodies and parents also need to do is to take away the fear of failure. We know how teachers are struggling in terms of the workloads that they have. And if this is seen as something over and above, it's more work, it's more effort, really it's going to overwhelm them completely. So if we can take away that sense of it's something where they must either succeed or not. They're either going to get it right or wrong. But allow teachers to be vulnerable. Allow them to lean into the fact that they're still learning and encourage that idea of continuous learning. Then we have room for exploration and innovation and learning through play and project-based teaching. And those are things that teachers already know. It's what they're used to doing. And if they can bring those skills into this new subject, their confidence skyrockets, the ability in the classroom skyrockets, and that's how we manage to make this a success at the end of the day.
Yolin, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, and to you too. That's Yolin Jacobs, publisher for schools and home learning at Oxford University Press, South Africa, joining us on the line.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
The young women who testified in the case against Reverend Timothy Omotoso, leader of the Jesus Dominion International, spoke to the media this morning for the first time since his acquittal on all rape charges. During the briefing, one of the women stated that for them, justice would mean accountability and not seeing him walk free without consequences.
I think having each other was contributed most to our strength, not knowing that we are alone, knowing that we're not alone, and just keeping the faith and knowing that he was in custody was somehow comfort for us. But now that he's out there, justice for us would mean him being held accountable, knowing that he's not out there. So with us saying we need a proper investigation done, we would like, the CRL has already put up for us an opportunity to open an investigation, hopefully. Our prosecution team, because a lot went wrong, like we stated in our statement, if they can look into how everything was being run, how the NPA ran this whole case from the very beginning, the changes that were made to this case after we had already given our statements, we would really appreciate that. So if the matter with the prosecution team and how they handled things could be investigated, it would give us some sort of ease. Thank you.
That's just one of the young women who testified in the case against Timothy Omotoso, the leader of Jesus Dominion International, who walked free without any consequences just a few weeks ago. And these women are addressing the media for the first time since Omotoso's acquittal. It is 12:56 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. And we say good afternoon to the Upside team with Nompumelelo. How are you today?
Hello. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And how are you?
I'm all right.
Good. What's coming up today?
So, we have been reflecting on the luxury industry. This is following the Chinese producers and suppliers having come out after the tariff increases were imposed on them to say, don't even bother with your luxury items. Come straight to us. I know that you...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I have no idea what Nompumelelo is talking about, but yes.
So we're going to be reflecting on the psychology of buying, of the consumers, right? Luxury consumers. What is it about purchasing luxury goods and items when there are alternatives, more affordable alternatives? Why would you continue to purchase luxury items?
And I look at you.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking. You're so naughty because I'm looking at you. But
no,
all right.
I'm looking at you.
I mean,
and I'm sure people can see because now we are live streaming. So people can see.
No, people can see,
exactly.
Lulu.
Yes, they can see Nompumelelo. Yes.
We're going to be speaking to brand expert Solim Wing as well as co-founder of Luxity, Michael Zahariv. And Luxity, they resell luxury items. I mean, they authenticate and then resell. But really there we want to find out, are they at all worried about their clientele potentially going to China to go get these luxury goods? And then we will reflect on the SADC. They have partnered with Doechii. I don't know if you know the rapper Doechii.
Yes.
She has a song that is very popular, speaking about anxiety. Somebody's watching me, it's my anxiety. But they have partnered with her because that song has sparked a conversation around anxiety. We've normalized it, but it is a serious issue. SADC is they're running a campaign to educate people about what anxiety is, how people can heal it or work around it, the support that they are providing. And then we'll also look at childhood silence to adult struggles of redefining mental health on the African continent.
It's all coming up at the top of the hour on The Upside with Nompumelelo and Dabuho. From myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a good day. Let's do this again tomorrow. And have a great day. Continue with us on our social media platforms. Bye-bye.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. SABC News. The African Perspective.
Looking at your latest news this hour. Tunisia has dramatically expanded the use of politically motivated arrests and prosecutions to intimidate and silence critics. This is according to a report by the international non-governmental organization Human Rights Watch, in what the group describes as a sweeping rollback of freedom won during Tunisia's 2011 revolution. The report says authorities in recent years have targeted lawyers, judges, journalists and activists in a crackdown on critics of President Kais Saied. Advocacy and Communications Director for Human Rights Watch's Middle East and North Africa Division, Ahmed Benchemzi, states.
About 40 people are accused of plotting to, overthrow the president and maybe even kill him. It so happens that all of these are political opponents to the president. Some of them are former ministers, some of them are former parliamentaries, just his political adversaries who are prosecuted without charge and in violation of all the norms of fair trial and fair justice. So many Tunisian commentators reacted to that by sarcastically saying on social media, between quotation marks, we are all conspirators. And basically the message is, if being an opponent to President Saied is considered conspiracy, then we're all guilty.
The Assistant Minister for Political Affairs at the UAE's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Leina Nuseibeh, has expressed disappointment at the failure of a London conference this week to find consensus on ending the 2-year war in Sudan. Both Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have drawn on the support of countries in the region, making them key to efforts to end the conflict. The war has displaced 13 million people and spread disease and hunger amongst those remaining. At a London hosted meeting on Tuesday, however, the UAE, Egypt and Saudi Arabia disagreed on issues surrounding Sudan's governance. Sudan had protested the inclusion of countries, including the UAE, which it has accused of supporting the RSF. The young women who testified against Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso in South Africa during his trial say they feel the justice system has let them down. They were speaking at a media briefing that the Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Rights Commission hosted in Johannesburg today. The High Court in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape Province recently found Omotoso and his 2 co-accused not guilty on all 32 charges, including rape, human trafficking and racketeering. One of the women say the incident has led to personal trauma and public scrutiny. She's also expressed her disappointment with the way the prosecution team handled the case.
We are disappointed, we are upset, but we are not dismayed. We know whatever the outcome was, we spoke our truth and we will continue standing by it. We can't shy away from the fact that the system has let us down. It has failed us. The outcome of this case could have been different if our prosecution handled the matter better than how they did. Our lives have never been the same, personally and publicly. We feel threatened, worse now because our faces are out there and visible.
Traffic has started to build up on the N1 between the Gauteng and Limpopo provinces in South Africa. This as hundreds of the Zion Christian Church members head to Moriah in Polokwane for the Easter weekend pilgrimage. About 120 law enforcement officers have been deployed to the province. Transport and Community Safety MEC Violet Mate led to a stop and search operation on Neil Toll Plaza outside Polokwane this morning.
During our preparatory meetings, we're with the delegation from the 2 churches. They have also given us their travel plans to say when they come from Gauteng or wherever, RTMC will be monitoring their movement until they reach Moriah. So with us, when they reach here, some of them will be escorted so that they arrive in Moriah being safe. RTMC has given us 120 traffic officers to inject to the others that we are having already. So we're saying as the department we are ready and we are going to make sure that that road, there are more police visibility.
Lastly, Ukraine's defense minister and foreign minister have unexpectedly arrived in Paris, where talks are beginning on how to end Ukraine's war with Russia. The U.S. Secretary of State Marcus Rubio and envoy Steve Witkoff are both taking part in the talks, but it's not clear if they'll meet the Ukrainian delegation. The BBC's Paul Moss reports.
Ukraine has repeatedly called on US politicians to meet their representatives, but the US envoy Steve Witkoff had pointedly decided instead to meet Vladimir Putin in Moscow and then fly to Paris for talks with European leaders. But now it seems he's been followed to Paris by Ukraine's Defense Minister Rustem Umerov and Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha. A spokesman for the two said they had meetings scheduled with American representatives but didn't say who. With Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio in town, those two would certainly be their top choice.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.